2 years ago, most people were still treating AI like a fun tool. You could ask it to write an email, maybe summarize an article, maybe answer a question faster than Google. Now, that same technology can read huge documents, analyze images, talk back in real time, write working code, search through long files, fix bugs, and in some cases, act more like a junior assistant than a simple chatbot. And the speed of that change has been hard to understand. Because this did not happen slowly. It happened in waves. One model got better, then another one got faster, then another one got cheaper, then another one got better at reasoning. Then another one started writing code well enough that even experienced programmers had to stop and ask a serious question. Are some jobs already starting to change for good? In this video, we're going to look at the last 2 years of AI progress, from early 2024 through 2025 and into 2026. We'll talk about the big players OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and DeepSeek. We'll talk about why coding has become one of the most important battlegrounds in AI. And we'll talk about the real question underneath all of this, not whether AI is getting better. That part is obvious. The real question is how much of today's work can be handed off to machines, and how fast that handoff is starting to happen. To understand where we are now, you have to remember what AI felt like just 2 years ago. In early 2024, large language models were already impressive, but they still felt limited. They were useful but often unreliable. They could write, but they struggled with longer, more complicated tasks. They could help with code, but usually in short bursts. They felt more like assistants you had to watch carefully than systems you could really lean on. And then the pace changed. Over the following months, the industry moved from simple chatbots to multimodal systems, then to long context systems, then to stronger reasoning models, and then to coding agents that could actually work across files and tools. That shift matters, because once AI stops being just a text generator and starts behaving like a tool user, a document reader, a code assistant, and a workflow system, it stops being a novelty. It becomes infrastructure. And once a technology becomes infrastructure, work starts to reorganize around it. Let's start in early 2024. In February 2024, Google introduced Gemini 1.5, and one of the biggest headlines was context length. Google said Gemini 1.5 Pro introduced a breakthrough in long context understanding, and by May 2024, Google was pushing 1 million token context to Gemini Advanced users. That mattered because AI was no longer limited to tiny windows of conversation. It could start taking in books, code bases, transcripts, and large research documents in a single session. Then in May 2024, OpenAI announced GPT-4o, calling it a new flagship model that could reason across audio, vision, and text in real time. That announcement mattered because AI stopped looking like a text box and started looking more like a live interface. Suddenly, the idea of talking to AI, showing it things, and getting fast responses felt much closer to a real assistant. A month later, in June 2024, Anthropic released Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Anthropic said it raised the industry bar for intelligence with strong performance across a wide range of evaluations. Whether people preferred one model or another, the bigger story was clear. The leading labs were now leapfrogging one another every few months, and each jump was making the tools more practical for real work. By the second half of 2024, this was no longer just a race for smarter chatbots. It had become a race across several fronts at once. Who had the best multimodal model? Who had the longest context window? Who had the fastest model? Who had the cheapest model? And increasingly, who had the best model for coding? In July 2024, Google expanded Gemini 1.5 Flash broadly, emphasizing speed and efficiency. By December 2024, Google introduced Gemini 2.0 as a model for what it called the agentic era, with Gemini 2.0 Flash available experimentally to developers. Around the same time, DeepSeek released DeepSeek V3 as an open model and promoted it as a major leap forward in speed and capability. Then January 2025 arrived, and DeepSeek R1 became one of the biggest AI stories in the world. DeepSeek said R1 delivered performance on par with top reasoning systems and released it openly under the MIT license along with distilled models. That mattered for two reasons. First, it pushed the idea that frontier-level reasoning might not stay locked inside a few US companies. Second, it showed how much pressure open models could put on the rest of the market. AI was no longer just about who had the smartest model. It was also about who could spread those capabilities fastest. Then February 2025 brought another major shift. Anthropic launched Claude 3.7 Sonnet and Claude Code. Anthropic called 3.7 Sonnet its most intelligent model to date and the first hybrid reasoning model on the market. More importantly, for work, Claude Code was introduced as an agentic coding system that can read a code base, make changes across files, run tests, and deliver committed code. That is a very different thing from a chatbot that only suggests a few lines of code. March, April, and May of 2025 kept accelerating. Google introduced Gemini 2.5 Pro and said it showed strong reasoning and code capabilities, leading on common coding, math, and science benchmarks. OpenAI introduced GPT 4.1 in April 2025 and said the new series brought major improvements on coding, instruction following, and long context. Anthropic then introduced Claude 4 in May 2025 and described Opus 4 as the world's best coding model for complex, long-running tasks and agent workflows. So if you zoom out, the last 2 years were not just AI got better. They were more like this. AI learned to see, then it learned to hear. Then it learned to remember more. Then it learned to reason longer. Then it learned to use tools. Then it started doing coding tasks that used to belong almost entirely to humans. And that is why the conversation changed so fast from "this is interesting" to "what exactly happens to jobs now?" If you want to understand how AI may reshape work, coding is one of the first places to look. Anthropic said exactly that in an April 2025 analysis of AI's impact on software development. The company described coding as among the most developed uses of AI in the economy, and suggested software development may be a leading indicator for how other occupations could change as models become more capable. That is a big statement, and it makes sense. Code has a structure, it has syntax, it has rules, it has tests, it has clear success and failure conditions. That makes software a natural target for AI. If an AI writes marketing copy, judging quality can be subjective. If an AI writes code, you can often run it, test it, and see whether it works. That makes feedback faster. And faster feedback means faster improvement. Anthropic's data also shows how central coding has become in actual usage. In its January 2026 Economic Index report, Anthropic found that computer and mathematical tasks continued to dominate Claude usage, representing about a third of Claude.ai conversations and nearly half of first-party API traffic in November 2025. The single most prevalent task in November 2025 was modifying software to correct errors, representing 6% of Claude.ai usage and 1 in 10 API records. That is not a small niche anymore. That is a real economic use case. It means people are not just asking AI random questions. A large share of advanced users are pointing it at actual software work, fixing bugs, generating code, iterating on programs, and increasingly automating routine development tasks. And Anthropic's software development report adds another important detail. Software-related use was more automative than non-software use, but still involved heavy human review. In other words, AI coding today often looks like this. The human delegates part of the task. The AI produces a draft. The human checks it, the human revises or redirects it, then the AI tries again. That pattern matters because it suggests the job is not disappearing all at once. It is being broken apart. And the pieces that are easiest to automate are often the first pieces to move. Let's break the major models down in simple terms. ChatGPT and OpenAI stayed important because they kept pushing the interface forward. GPT-4, in May 2024 helped make multimodal AI feel real-time and consumer-friendly, while GPT 4.1 in April 2025 focused heavily on coding, instruction following, and long context. OpenAI's API documentation also highlights GPT 4.1's 1 million token context window and positions it as a strong non-reasoning model for coding and tool use. Google's Gemini line mattered because Google attacked both scale and developer tooling. Gemini 1.5 pushed long context use cases into the mainstream. Gemini 2.0 framed the next phase as agentic. Gemini 2.5 Pro was then positioned as a stronger reasoning and coding system, with Google explicitly saying it led on common coding benchmarks and highlighting improved web app generation. Claude became especially important in the coding conversation. Claude 3.5 Sonnet was seen as a major step up in mid-2024. Then Claude 3.7 Sonnet introduced hybrid reasoning in early 2025, and Claude Code pushed Anthropic beyond assistant territory into something more like an engineering tool. By May 2025, Anthropic was marketing Claude 4 as state-of-the-art for coding and long-running agent workflows. DeepSeek changed the conversation differently. It mattered less because of interface polish and more because it showed what open or more openly distributed AI could do. DeepSeek BAI 3 landed at the end of 2024 as a major open model release, and DeepSeek R1 in January 2025 turned into a global talking point because it suggested powerful reasoning models might spread faster and more cheaply than many people expected. Put simply, OpenAI helped normalize AI as a general-purpose assistant. Google pushed long context, agents, and developer integration. Anthropic became a major name in coding and structured work. DeepSeek helped push the open model shockwave. That combination is a big reason why AI went from impressive to unavoidable so quickly. Now let's focus on Claude and coding, because this is where a lot of the anxiety comes from. Anthropic's own description of Claude Code is strikingly direct. It says Claude Code can read your code base, make changes across files, run tests, and deliver committed code. That is not, help me write a function. That is much closer to, go handle this coding task. And this is where job pressure starts to become easier to imagine. Because many software jobs are not about inventing brand new systems from scratch every day. A lot of real-world software work looks like this. Fix this bug, refactor this file, update this component, write tests, trace this error, change this endpoint, clean up this mess. Those are exactly the kinds of tasks where AI can become useful fast. Not because it understands the whole business like a senior engineer, not because it can replace leadership, but because it can take over chunks of production work that used to require time from a human developer. Anthropic's April 2025 software development report found that AI-assisted coding often involves feedback loops, meaning humans still review and iterate heavily even when Claude does much of the work. That is important. It suggests the near-term future may not be AI replaces all developers. It may be fewer humans supervise more generated code. And that kind of shift can still affect jobs. If one engineer using strong AI tools can do more bug fixing, more prototyping, and more routine implementation, then a company may need fewer junior people for the same output. That does not mean all engineering jobs disappear. It does mean the latter may change, especially at the bottom. There is already evidence of strain there. SignalFire's 2025 State of Tech Talent Report said new grad hiring in big tech was down more than 50% from pre-pandemic levels in 2019, with new grads making up just 7% of hires at big tech firms. Startups were also down by more than 30% from 2019. SignalFire links that shift partly to tighter budgets and rising AI capabilities. So when people say AI coding tools could take over some jobs, the careful version is this. They are most likely to hit repetitive, lower level, and entry-level tasks first. And if those tasks are a big part of how people enter the field, the effects can spread beyond just daily productivity. They can reshape the hiring pipeline itself. This is where the story gets more interesting because the answer is not simply yes. AI coding has improved dramatically, but improved does not mean solved. There are strong reasons to think coding is one of the most economically important AI use cases right now. Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, and others all emphasize coding in their product releases. Benchmark culture has also made coding one of the clearest ways to compare models. Google said Gemini 2.5 Pro led on common coding benchmarks. OpenAI highlighted coding gains in GPT 4.1. Anthropic called Claude 4 the world's best coding model for complex agent workflows. But real work is messier than benchmarks. Reuters reported in July 2025 on a METR study finding that cutting-edge AI tools actually slowed down experienced software developers working in code bases they already knew well. The study found task completion time increased by 19%, even though the developers expected AI to speed them up. Reuters said the slowdown came from developers having to review and correct model suggestions. That is a powerful reminder. AI can be extremely strong in some coding situations and still underperform in others. It may help beginners more than experts in certain tasks. It may help with prototypes more than with complex legacy systems. It may shine in greenfield projects and stumble in mature code bases full of edge cases and hidden business logic. So the honest takeaway is not, AI can code everything now. The honest takeaway is, AI can already handle enough coding work to change how software is built, but human review is still essential, and the gains are uneven. That may not sound as dramatic, but for the labor market, it is dramatic enough. Now let's move from coding to the broader job picture. The IMF said in early 2024 that around 40% of jobs worldwide are exposed to AI, with the share rising to about 60% in advanced economies. The IMF also stressed that AI can both complement workers and replace parts of what they do, meaning the outcome is not purely job loss or purely productivity gain. Microsoft and LinkedIn's 2024 Work Trend Index found that generative AI use had nearly doubled in 6 months, and that 75% of global knowledge workers were already using AI at work. That matters because it suggests adoption is not waiting for perfect corporate policy. Employees are already using these tools often before management has fully adapted. The World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025 gives a broader, more balanced picture. It says that by 2030, 170 million jobs could be created and 92 million displaced, for a net increase of 78 million jobs globally. That does not mean everything is fine. It means disruption and creation are happening at the same time. And the transition may be painful, even if the long-run total is positive. Anthropic's economic research adds another layer. In its March 2026 report, the company said about 49% of jobs had seen at least a quarter of their tasks performed using Claude. That does not mean half of jobs are gone. It means task-level penetration is already broad. And task-level change is often how job-level change begins. That is probably the best way to think about this. Jobs are bundles of tasks. AI does not need to replace a whole job overnight to reshape the labor market. It only needs to absorb enough tasks to change what employers hire for, what juniors do, how teams are structured, and how much output each worker can produce. Based on the reporting and data we have so far, the people most exposed first are not always the people with the most expensive titles. Often, it is the people doing the most repeatable digital work. Entry-level research, routine writing, basic analysis, back-office process handling, and parts of junior coding work. That pattern shows up in several places. Anthropic's January 2026 report says API customers were increasingly using Claude for office and administrative support workflows like email management, document processing, CRM, and scheduling. That suggests automation is already moving beyond code into routine business operations. SignalFire's report suggests the entry point into tech is already tightening, especially for new graduates. Reuters also reported that AI is expected to replace entry-level coding positions more readily than senior roles, even while some experienced developers still find the tools frustrating in complex environments. That creates a strange split. Senior people may feel safer in the short term because their work involves judgment, architecture, stakeholder communication, and responsibility. But junior people may be more exposed because the tasks they usually perform to learn the craft are exactly the tasks AI is getting good at assisting or automating. And if those entry-level tasks shrink, then the whole pipeline changes. The careful answer is yes, but not in the simple movie version way. AI is already taking over some tasks. That is not really debatable anymore. The tougher question is how many tasks combine into fewer roles, fewer openings, or new job definitions. The most responsible reading of the evidence right now is this: AI is not replacing all knowledge work at once. It is automating selected parts, especially where work is digital, structured, and easy to verify. Coding is one of the clearest examples, and entry-level roles may feel the pressure first. At the same time, it would be misleading to say the outcome is settled. Some research shows productivity gains, some shows slowdowns. Some employers see AI as leverage. Others are still figuring out where it fails. What looks clear is not full replacement, but reorganization. Fewer people doing routine production, more people supervising AI systems, higher expectations for workers to use AI tools, and more pressure on people entering fields where the starter tasks are being automated away. If you look back at the last 2 years, the pace is the story. In early 2024, the industry was still arguing over which chatbot felt smartest. By 2025, the argument had shifted to which model could reason better, code better, use tools better, and automate more real work. Google pushed long context encoding. OpenAI pushed multimodal use and stronger coding models. Anthropic pushed hard into coding workflows and agents. DeepSeek showed that powerful reasoning models could spread outside the usual closed ecosystem. And that is why the job conversation has become impossible to ignore. Because once AI can read a code base, modify files, run tests, summarize research, process documents, and support office workflows, the question is no longer whether work changes. It is which work changes first. Right now, coding looks like one of the clearest answers, not because human programmers no longer matter. They absolutely do. But because coding is one of the first places where AI has become good enough, useful enough, and integrated enough to start changing how teams hire, how they build, and what they expect from human workers. The bigger lesson may be this: the future of work may not arrive as one giant moment where AI suddenly replaces everyone. It may arrive one task at a time, one bug fix at a time, one draft at a time, one workflow at a time, one junior role at a time. And if that is true, then the real disruption has already started. The last 2 years were enough to prove one thing: AI is not standing still. And if the last 2 years were this fast, the next 2 may matter even more. Because now it is not just about what these models can say, it is about what they can do. And once AI becomes something that can do work, the world of work starts changing around it. As always, thanks for watching.